Peace and assalamu alaikum to the believers. Welcome back. This is Bilal Abdullah, MABIA, Muslim and Black in America. You see what it is. You see the picture. So you know who we going in on. Back at it again with the Zaikuna Institute. Now this is going to be a build up to, the body of this audio essay. So just follow me, walk with me. We're going to be doing a build up to it. So be patient and, just stay tuned and keep listening. If you like the content and you want to keep getting more of this type of content, then drop a donation, that will help me free up time so I can produce more content and type up more things and research more things. So I don't have to spend so much time, at the gig, but it's whatever. If you don't have anything to give, you can always give something free, and that's a like, a share, a subscribe, all that good stuff. And it's amazing what a few people on the net can do with a strong voice behind them to amplify the message. We see that the new black media and the voices, words, and actions of the people amplifying it have begun to deal body blows to the election, the media, and the overall discussion of race and reparations in this country. The voices of the black masses has become so loud it cannot be ignored. It must be talked about publicly, from CNN to MSNBC to Fox to wherever. We are having to be addressed, and this is a good thing. But also we have seen is the feeble attempt to undermine such voices and messages. From calling us bots to calling the people Russian allies to saying we're being xenophobic or we're enacting birtherism or claiming that people and politicians aren't black enough. All these names thrown at the people, all because we want justice and want to be addressed specifically in the political arena, for example. Because we want tangibles, and if we don't get any, then the people will not hit the ballot boxes. All other groups do such things, yet when we do it, it is a problem. So this system, let's call it white supremacy. This system has sent out its agents to disrupt and sway the narrative of the people. I look at it like the Matrix. You're disrupting the system, so they have to send out an Agent Smith to kill your movement. And they're doing it from every angle, calling the men to drop their masculinity, calling the women to pick up masculinity and say, I don't need a man, trying to pull our women away from us by overpraising them and leaving out their men. This is part of one of the things the Dajjal would do. The hadith of the Prophet, where he says a man would have to tie his woman up in his house so that she doesn't go out to the Dajjal or the Antichrist. That's how bad the fitna of the Dajjal system would be, that a man would have to tie his woman up in the house so that she doesn't get lost out there in the world. So we see it's as the Prophet predicted, because we see it going on now with the female liberalism and all these type of things. They do it through entertainment, with constant promotion of whole culture and being a trapper or being a drug head. And they do it through religion as well. And people think dropping religion will be the answer. Well, it depends on what religion you drop and which one you pick up, if you pick up one. But out of the three main monotheistic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, each one of these has what I like to call their matrix version. Now, what I mean by that is you have the true teachings of each of these religions. Then you have the worldly version, the politically accepted version, or the Dajjalic version of these religions. With Judaism, you have those who are sincere Jews who follow the Torah. They follow the laws of Musa that he laid out. They know that until the time of the Mahdi and the Messiah, Jesus, they are not to have a particular homeland or their own state and are to live in different areas of the globe, to be scattered. They don't try to oppress others. They don't practice magic. They don't believe or agree with white supremacy. And they want to see it destroyed because they know it is ungodly. These are the true, sincere Jews. And some may actually come to Islam because of their sincerity, while some may remain Jews. Now, the Matrix version of Judaism is what we see today, with the so-called state of Israel and how they did the Palestinians and still do the Palestinians. Those certain European Jews who converted to Judaism and weren't really from the bloodline of the children of Israel like many black people are. Many of these Jews are the ones who inflict oppression upon the globe and upon the Palestinians. They have their own other book called the Talmud, in which everyone who is not a Jew is to become their slave, basically, and especially the black people are the bottom of the low, of the bottom. Then you have those who practice powerful witchcraft amongst them. You know, many don't even really worship Allah or follow the laws of Musa. Many are really Satanists and dress it up in Judaic garb. These are the ones who control the media and the banks and things of this nature. These types join with white supremacy hand in hand to dominate the globe unjustly. Again, let me reiterate for those who may try to say I'm anti-Semitic. I'm not talking about all Jews. I'm talking about those who truly don't follow the religion with sincerity and justice, and those who join with white supremacy. Many black people are in fact the true Jews, so I really couldn't be anti-Semitic. This is just something the evil ones use to hide behind so that you can't speak truth to power about those of them who practice such evil. Then you have Christianity. The true teachings of Christianity are of worshiping God alone, are of accepting its prophet Jesus and following the laws he set forth. The laws which were similar to what the sincere Jews follow, but with some differences here and there. They are still instructed to be about peace, to the point where if someone were to slap them, the Bible tells them to turn the other cheek. They are instructed to be giving, to be just, and to call out evil. These sincere Christians are the ones who want to see an end to white supremacy because they know Jesus would not accept such evil upon the earth. And as I said before, it is my opinion that when Jesus returns, he will deal the final death blow to white supremacy. I'm of the opinion that Gog and Magog, Juj and Majuj, are basically white supremacists and white supremacy. If you do the research on Juj and Majuj, Gog and Magog, you will see what I mean. And when Isa returns, he will break the cross, meaning he will end this religion of Christianity, which these white supremacists have used and hid behind. That is the Matrix Christianity, where the white supremacists hide behind the religion of Christianity and really are promoting white supremacy. They don't truly live by the words and teachings and actions of Jesus. No, they live by their own desires and lust and say, well, the blood of Jesus got me. These are the Satanists amongst the sincere Christians. Many sincere Christians accept Islam like me, but there are also many who ascribe to the beliefs of Satanism, and they also join hand in hand with white supremacy while claiming to be Christian. As I said before in previous broadcasts that I did, white supremacy is Satanism. So once you join Team White Supremacy, you have joined with Team Satanism. And then, they have their minions who do their bidding, who push on the sincere Christians the Matrix version of their religion, which is the submission to white supremacy or denial of it or joining white supremacy, so that there will be no truth to power spoken against such injustice in the world. And the people will just fall in line. This is the same thing that the slave masters did with Christianity in their time to the slaves. They used it to lull the African slaves to sleep and to dream of heaven after this hell. You know, if they just please their white God slave masters, then they are really pleasing God. Many saw through this matrix and saw the true Christianity or true justice, like Nat Turner. We as black people in America, we have a strong connection to Christianity, and this is one of the religions they use the most against us. This is one reason why many black people of America drop Christianity, because they see how it was used to oppress us. Then they start to see that the changed version of Christianity, the changed version of Jesus that Christianity promotes, of him allegedly dying on the cross, they see that, hey, this is just like the story of Horus, of sun worship. So they go into that, and they end up picking up magic and start doing sun worship and associating partners with God, which will not help them in the end either. Many of the powerful in the dominant society claim to be Christian as well, but they practice witchcraft as well, just like these black folk who left Christianity. So y'all are in the same boat, both associating partners with God and using witchcraft. This will not give you benefit in this life or in the next. And this is one of the reasons why I think we were hit with the punishment of slavery, because we turned away from God alone and started getting into such magic and witchcraft and occultism. And this is what many refer to in the Bible of the 400-year prophecy, which they say is now up. But this matrix Christianity is what most of your white supremacists claim to be a part of. But the real religion, all of these religions, you know, the matrix form of these religions, the real religion they're a part of is white supremacy cloaked in its particular religious garb. So, you know, we just talked about Judaism and how you have the matrix version of Judaism, and then you have the matrix version of Christianity. That matrix is really just white supremacy. And it's the same with Islam. You have the sincere version, and then you have the matrix version. But the blessing of Islam is that we have the pure, unchanged book of Allah, and we have the Sunnah, and we have the writings of the original scholars and the companions of the prophets. So even when they try to present the matrix Islam for us to follow, the only ones who will follow it are those who are either ignorant of this deen, meaning they don't want to study or learn it, or those who are purposely joining this matrix, and they will stick out like a sore thumb to those who are sincere and those people of knowledge who are sincere. Islam tells us to stand up for justice, whether for or against ourselves, and we have to be honest. Slavery has been going on since almost the beginning of mankind. But the slavery of the Caucasian against the black race was unique and totally unjust. Period. It doesn't even agree with Islam. What those demons did to the African people, to our people, is totally outside the understanding of the form of slavery that Islam implemented, or that even went on throughout the globe in history before it. No, this slavery was based on race. It wasn't based on, I defeated your army, so now I take all your women as concubines and I make the men slaves. It wasn't based on that. Or it wasn't based on, you owe me way too much money and you don't have it to pay, so now you have to be my indentured servant or slave until you pay off your debt. It wasn't based on that. It was based on, I'm white, and those people over the sea over there in Africa, or wherever they not white, it means they lesser than us. So it means since I'm white, we can take them as slaves for no reason whatsoever. And we can do whatever we want to them and treat them worse than animals because, hey, they are worse than animals. They're black. And I'm just paraphrasing the horrendous nature of this slavery they implemented. It was much worse. So they snatched us up from our lands and forced us to a land we knew nothing about. A land that was uncultivated, and we built America for free. You know, this is a point that I like that Tariq brings up, that when we were forced here, there was no America. There was nothing here. We were the ones who built America again for free. So was an injustice done to the black people. Then after allegedly freeing us, quote unquote, we still had to deal with systematic white supremacy and actual laws on the books to keep black people from ever gaining any type of wealth or control of the society and nation we built. Everything from redlining, Jim Crow, lynching, sundown laws, etc. We could keep going and going about how the foundational black Americans were constantly victims of white supremacy, how our wealth, every time we came together and began to build it, it was destroyed by white supremacists. How wealth was purposely siphoned away from us in any way they could. How we couldn't fully take part and have a stake in the wealth that we generated in building this country. Again, for free. This went on for years after slavery allegedly ended. So this is clear-cut injustice. So you mean to tell me when folks like Dr. King and Malcolm X came around, or even those before them, all these leaders calling out the injustice of what is systematically being done to us, and white supremacy says, okay, you know what, you're right, we'll write some civil rights laws for you all, and we'll end segregation, and we'll write a few laws here and there that ban discrimination. You mean to tell me once these laws were signed, then we just won? Systematic white supremacy just ended that day? There was no more white supremacy? We were all now equal, and all those white supremacists who still existed at the time of the signing of these laws and bills, all of a sudden their heart just melted away and turned to justice, and now we're just all on an even playing field. Does that make sense to you? This is what Ali bin Hamid and the Zaikuna College want you to believe. Who is Abdullah bin Hamid Ali, or Ali bin Hamid? From now on, I'm going to just call him Ali to keep it short and brief. But who is this person? I've looked around and have only gotten short bios here and there. He was born and raised in Pennsylvania to two Muslim parents. And the stuff that he's spewing that we're going to go over, the stuff that he's writing and saying, it made me question, was he either an immigrant himself, or were his parents immigrants? Because he says outlandish things. But he went to Temple University for 2 years, and he attended the famous Al-Qarawiyyin University of Morocco for about 4 years. And see, this is what I noticed about him and the people of Zaikuna. A lot of them go overseas for years, and they lose touch with black America. They lose touch with foundational black American society, and then they come back over with a whole different outlook of how they look at black people. They come back with an immigrant mind. But he worked as a chaplain at the State Correctional Institution of Chester, and he does regular khutbahs as well. And he has many other degrees, so I will give him his props on that. His resume, I guess, is pretty solid. No hate on that. But just because, knowledge doesn't always mean something if the person is using it against his own people. Or are we his people? Like I said before, I want to know the fact that he's saying all these things that we're going to go over. It made me question if he was an immigrant. But again, he is a professor at Zaikuna Institute. So here we are back again. I did a broadcast 10 months ago, calling out Zaikuna Institute and Zaikuna College about what they're doing in the black community and how they're speaking down to black people. And here we are again. So it's obviously getting worse and worse. What the heck is going on with Zaikuna College, Zaikuna Institute, Zaikuna Plantation? That's what I just call it. We're going to call it that, the Zaikuna Plantation. This is the second or third time some anti-black white supremacist talking points have been heard from them. First, it was Hamza Useless speaking about racism and police brutality and giving the same talking points of white supremacy, saying, it's because of bad families. It's because of blacks commit more crime. It's not really racism because, hey, whites get shot too. He never apologized for his comments and never addressed the systematic white supremacy that has been going on since slavery. Instead, he had his black friend Zayc come and quell the Negroes and assure us that his friend Hamza is not racist or have any white supremacist leanings. Then don't forget when Zayc did that long post on Facebook damn near sticking up for Kavanaugh. But we'll get back to Hamza Useless in a minute. Just putting it out there that, again, I'm questioning Zaikuna's stance on reparations now too. I'm questioning Zaikuna's stance on white supremacy, etc. Now, as I was saying, this is what Ben Hamid Ali wants you to believe, that systematic white supremacy is no more. What are the odds that you have Hamza saying these things, a black Muslim protecting him, and then another black Muslim trying to make us believe that systematic white supremacy doesn't exist anymore? All in the same clique, all in the same plantation, all in the same college. This lets me know this is a belief of theirs. Now, this is going to be a long one, so I want you all to stick with me. This is just exposing the matrix version of Islam that I was speaking about. And by matrix versions of these different religions, I mean those that submit, assist, work for, run interference for, carry water for white supremacy and or are white supremacists themselves. So let's get into this. Ali was first brought to my attention by a Muslim brother. I won't say his name. I don't know if he wants to be identified or not. But this brother hit my messages and told me, he asked me, have I heard about Ali and what he's been saying on Facebook? I said, nah, bro, you have to, do you have any links or screenshots? So, family, look at your screen. This is the first screenshot of a pretty long post of Fulani House Muslim Babble. I can just see the buttermilk samosa crumbs falling from his lips. In this Facebook interaction Ali was having with another brother, the brother basically asked him, if systematic white supremacy no longer exists, when did it come to an end? This is a very potent and direct question. Obviously, the brother who asked Ali this saw the House Muslim Babble and decided to question him about it. So let's go through with this, family. It's bad. I have to let out a hard sigh before going through this because this is horrible. So Ali, he says, racism is never clearly defined nor identified by critical race theorists. Okay, let's define it right now, because now he want to play dumb. White supremacy. Let's look at what the scholar Dr. Claude Anderson says and defines racism as. Dr. Claude Anderson said, what is racism as it concerns blacks? He says, racism is a wealth and power-based competitive relationship between blacks and non-blacks. The sole purpose of racism is to support and ensure that the white majority and its ethnic subgroups continue to dominate and use blacks as a means to produce wealth and power. Centuries of black enslavement and Jim Crow, semi-slavery resulted in the majority society becoming 99-foot giants and blacks becoming 1-foot midgets. This massive inequality in wealth and resources made blacks non-competitive and totally dependent upon whites for the necessities of life. True racism exists only when one group holds a disproportionate share of wealth and power over another group, then uses those resources to marginalize, exploit, and subordinate the weaker group. In America, there are some whites who use wealth and power to marginalize, exploit, and subordinate blacks. Whites can deny blacks employment, educational opportunities, business resources, a place to live, or the right to vote. Therefore, according to this definition, black people cannot be racist. No group of blacks has the power or exclusive control of resources to the degree that they can educationally, politically, economically, and socially exploit and marginalize the white race. Blacks can only react to racism and try to alter the conditions that racism creates. End quote. This is what Dr. Claude Anderson states. And, there are 8 key areas of life. And white supremacy has either dominated these areas or is heavily involved in these areas to the point where they have major control over it. These 8 areas of life are physical environment, career/business, finances and wealth, friends and family, fun, recreation and entertainment, health and fitness, love life, and personal/spiritual development. So first off, these 8 areas of life, white supremacy has control over all these areas. This is why white supremacy is the true racism. So first off, don't sit up here and try to insult the years of black scholars' intelligence of clearly defining what is true racism and white supremacy. See, this is a tactic of white supremacy. It is to deny it exists or question if it even exists, or to make you feel dumb for believing it exists. Because one of the rules of warfare is deception. So you have to ask yourself, why is Ali wanting to deny white supremacy? He goes on to say in this post, Ali goes on to say in his Facebook post replying to the brother, he says, rather, examples given of structural racism are usually things like police brutality, discrimination in hiring, wealth disparities between whites and blacks, incarceration rates, or voter suppression. There are many other things mentioned, but let's deal with these. Now, we just went through the 8 areas of life where white supremacy controls or dominates all of them. Now, the things he listed, aren't these all a part of those 8 things? So he wants to go on to discuss these things he mentions and then says there are even other things too. But let's just focus on these. So, oh, really? So there are even more things that happen with racism against blacks. There's so many that you just have to pick out a few to discuss because there's so many. This is how, then how is it that not showing you that there's an issue here? How is that not showing you that there is an issue here? How do you see that there are so many things that go on, but then you're saying white supremacy doesn't exist? But to you, but to Ali, it's not white supremacy, huh? Then he goes on to say, before discussing each of these areas he brought up, he says he says this to get your mind ready for the bull crap he about to say. He says, but before this, we must remember that when we call something systematic or structural, it implies that it is something by design and universal, or at least permeating most of our institutions. You just went over them, dog. When there were laws that, he goes on to say, when there were laws that expressly discriminated against blacks, no one could deny it. But since those laws no longer exist, there is little basis for conceding that systematic racism is anything more than the individual and localized decisions of individual actors or corporate entities. Negroes say what? He just said it exists, but only on a small level. That's what he basically just said. So he believes from his statement that since there are no more laws on the books, then there is no basis to say that white supremacy exists. But as we said, white supremacy operates on deception and saying that it doesn't exist. When there is a code amongst white supremacy, there is no need for specific laws on the books anymore. Again, what he's implying by this is that the day all those laws specifically, the day all those laws specifically used against black people were taken off the books, then the mentality of the white supremacists who were still running the country just changed overnight. Now they just love black people and they will never do anything against them ever again. So when the Prophet ﷺ signed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, all of a sudden the hearts of the kuffar changed. They said, hey, you know what? We love these Muslims now. We're not going to try to do any slick stuff. But what ended up happening? They broke their treaty because the hatred in their hearts for the Muslims never left. Such things like this happen all through history. An oppressor takes some laws off the books to fool the people, but it's still the same oppressor telling you, okay, now I'm going to play nice. That's the okie doke. That's the okie doke that I spoke about in the last broadcast like a week or two ago. We're not falling for that. Why do you want us to fall for that, Ali? And as I said, then he conceded somewhat and he says, well, hey, if there is some systematic racism, it's just here and there. It's just sprinkled, by a few individuals or a few companies. The fact that you're conceding somewhat lets me know that you're wrong. So he starts with his point of police brutality and uses the same talking points that white supremacists use. Well, whites get shot by cops. Yeah, they sure do, but not on the same level as black people. And you know why? Because whites are known to shoot at cops or pull guns on cops. That's usually why they get shot at. In most cases, black people are shot for the most minor of things. We don't even pull out guns, or for just no reason at all. There are countless stories and articles to prove that. Then he says, well, there's no proof that these black people are being shot and or killed by police simply because the cops don't like black people. Excuse me? Negroes say what? The FBI has already told us, and you can Google this for yourself, they have already told us years ago that white supremacists have begun to infiltrate the police force. Now, what they said is true because you can Google countless stories about white supremacists being caught on the police force all over America. Matter of fact, just recently in LA, they are investigating a gang in law enforcement that have the same leg tat. And one of the officers who was involved with the killing of a black man years before, in one of his depositions, he was asked if he had ill will towards black people, and he paused for like 45 seconds and then admitted that he does. Just listen. Listen to this.
They're putting up these billboards in Los Angeles in the next few days.
We need to shine a light on what's been going on in Compton. Mostly
Sheldon Lockett said Aldana and his partner, Mizrain Orrego, used the N-word as they constantly beat him in January of 2016. Those same two deputies were involved in the shooting death of Dante Taylor in August of 2016. Taylor was unarmed.
Do you have any ill feelings in general against African Americans?
Aldana, in a deposition about the Taylor shooting, he paused for 45 seconds before answering that question.
I have feelings.
He was also asked in that deposition about this tattoo that he has on his leg. He said he does have it, along with about 15 other deputies in the Compton station.
It's a skeleton which symbolizes death, flames symbolizing that he's coming out of hell.
So you see that? Or what about back in 2017 when the police officer told the woman, we only kill black people? I'll put that link to the article in the blog. So there is massive amounts of evidence that police are just an arm of white supremacy. Police came out of the overseer of the slave in slave times. So don't try that, man. And then he says, well, that would mean you would have to criminalize all of the police as racist. No, I don't believe all police are racist, but I do believe that white supremacy is involved in the workings of the police departments across America. The fact that it is shown that they have infiltrated the police force lets you know that this is one of the 8 areas white supremacy has taken root in. So there's no way to deny it. Then he says, the only way to change the systematic killing of innocent black men is to criminalize all white people. No. Where are you getting this from, bro? You sound like a white person who's playing that reverse racism, who's playing that, oh my God, woe is me for being white. You know, you playing that card. No, all they need to do is pass a law and enforce the law that any officer who kills or unnecessarily harms any person, but specifically black people, because we need laws specifically for us anyway. If that person is found to be innocent or was found to be no threat whatsoever, then they have to do some jail time fitting of the severity. So when those officers shot that black man who was taking care of the special needs child, and the black man laid on the ground, hands and feet easily seen, and he committed no crime, yet the cop still shot him. And when the victim asked, why did you shoot me? The cop said, I don't know. Well, you know what I do know? That cop needs jail time. That will be a check and balance for them. Any police officer or any lawyer, prosecutor, DA, judge, etc., politician, any of them found to have white supremacist views, they need to be stripped of their position. And that's just a start. See, what it sounds like to me is that you love to be up under mommy and daddy. And when black Americans start calling them out, you're running to protect them. And that's not good, brother. Check yourself. Open your eyes. You're too intelligent to not see what's right in front of you. And really what it is I've noticed that these people who are spewing such bullcrap like this, their base is immigrants. A lot of these, Imam Toms and Zaikuna plantation bucks, their base are immigrants. They preach more and give khutbahs more, and their mosques are filled with mostly people from out of America. And most of these immigrants have major anti-black leanings, and most of them, before 9/11, they were Republicans, and even now many of them are. So, he's trying to control the narrative of what white supremacy is and isn't, of what systematic white supremacy is and isn't. I keep saying this so y'all can hear this. White supremacy operates through deception, and he knows that. This is why he continues to say there's no evidence of white supremacy being a government policy, because he knows that white supremacy has covered up most of their tracks and hiding it inside of the laws and policies they have today. He brings up discrimination in hiring. He says since we have equal opportunity laws today, then that means racism or white supremacy in hiring doesn't exist. And if it does happen, then violators will be prosecuted. Look, it either happens or it doesn't happen. If it happens, then you have evidence of white supremacy in hiring. It doesn't have to be a law in the book, and he knows this. How many black people across America have dealt with this? But somehow, again, he wants us to believe that it's not systematic white supremacy at work. Vox did an article back in 2017 on the study by the Northwestern University, Harvard, and others, showing that anti-black hiring discrimination is as prevalent today as it was in 1989. I'll put the link in the blog. They also did another article in 2019 about workplace discrimination being illegal, yet it still continues, and how those who commit these crimes are rarely punished. But I thought there were laws against that and people get punished, Ali. I'll put that link in the blog. How can this be if systematic white supremacy isn't still alive and well? It's just hidden, that's all. And again, here he goes with this. You're saying white people are the problem. Oh my gosh. White supremacy is a religion, so anyone can ascribe to that religion. So white people aren't the problem. White supremacists and its suspects, whether they are black, white, Asian, Hispanic, are the problem. White supremacy is the problem. So then he goes on to wealth disparities, and the buttermilk samosas and Imam Tom babble just starts flowing. It makes me sick, man. He starts off by saying, we all know the history leading to some of this. He's talking about wealth disparities. Stop right there. Stop my time. Stop my time. You're too educated for this, bro. This is how I know this is being purposely done. The fact that you even started your reply about wealth disparities with, we all know the history leading to some of this, shows you know what it is. And what do you mean, some of this? This is the white supremacists talking for him, through him, to us. What the hell do you mean, some? We were brought to this country in chains before there was even an America. We built this country from nothing. All of the wealth that proceeded from that was because of us. And we got none of it. What do you mean, some? How dare you? And then when we were quote unquote freed, that wealth was not shared with us. After years of laws on the books to stop us from gaining actual wealth, you're saying, well, they took those laws off the books now, so now it's your fault you don't have any money. Bruh, if I hold you back at the starting line and I'm ahead of you by 400 plus years and I'm ahead of you by trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars ahead of you, then I look back and say, okay, you're free to go now. How all of a sudden it's your fault why you're still broke? Meaning why you have no type of wealth to pass down to your generations. And while the other person who's way ahead of you, they have all their wealth locked into their family and lineage where you can't get it. And let's say you do gain some wealth. I still have all of these other family members who are starting from the same point I was starting from, and I have to help them as well. So, like, dude, what are you talking about? Democracy Journal did a review on the book Color of Law, and they broke down how wealth was purposely kept from black people of America by the government via housing and other ways, and how it still goes on till this day, and the effects of it are still going on. Even after they took the laws off the books. I'll put that link in the blog. You have to understand that the most common form of genocide is wealth deprivation until the people just fade out because of it. This is what's happening to black Americans today. And then even when we get on code, when black people get on code and we begin to build our wealth, you said white supremacy don't exist, right? Okay, well, how come every time we start to build our way and we start to do things away from white supremacy and build our own economy, we get bombed and attacked and our cities get burned to the ground and our people get massacred? How come that happens? He went on to talk about voter suppression, but I mean, come on, y'all. We know the con behind that. And it's beyond just IDs like he's trying to mention. The Guardian has tons of articles on voter suppression of black communities. I'll put that link in the blog as well. But he also mentions incarceration rates. And again, he starts off with trying to control the narrative by saying, other than the fact that the war on drugs led to unjust sentences, again, you just put your foot in your mouth. You're admitting to the systematic injustice of the drug war, which affected the black communities of America, yet then promoting what your master has told you to say, which is a blatant white supremacist talking point. He says, statistically, blacks do commit most of the crimes in the U.S. This is the crap the white supremacists try to use to criminalize blacks in general. What it is blacks get convicted of crimes the most. It doesn't mean they committed crimes. And you know who gets let off the most or not convicted or just given slaps on the wrist? The people in the dominant society do. We 13 to 14% of the population, yet the majority of the people in jail are black. It's not because most blacks are criminals. It's because of unjust sentencing, planting of evidence, or just outright lying of officers, and all types of other acts. This point by him lets me know he is getting his talking points from white supremacists or suspected white supremacists. Now, he wrote other articles as well, and it's one in particular I kind of want to look at quickly. But I also took a perusal through his Twitter and other social media page. And, let's look what we can find. First, we see him promoting Coleman Hughes. Yup, some no-name mixed with Spanish or Hispanic dude who was at the reparations hearings telling the government that blacks in general don't need reparations. Ali even goes on to say, I really like him, in another one of his posts. He even posts his videos on his Facebook page and then even writes a post saying basically, hey, you might not have wealth to pass down. You might not have generational wealth and it's all locked in the top 1%. But as long as you have more than what you need, you're really wealthy. Don't worry about your financial future or later generations as the dominant society does. And every other group does. That shouldn't matter to you guys. As long as you got enough to get through the day or get through the month and you got a little extra, you're actually wealthy. Don't worry about those other guys. And then he posting videos of guys flashing their Masonic symbols, telling us how reparations will actually hurt Black America. So it's obvious he's against reparations in some way for Black Americans. But how? When our debt we are owed is totally justified and many other groups have received them from the government. Why is Black people getting reparations a problem? Is this what Zaikuna is promoting? If it hasn't become obvious, it should be now that there is obviously a movement which has always been there of people who claim to be Muslims but are basically white supremacists or suspected white supremacists, supporters or collaborators. And they are anti-Black empowerment. They are anti-Black. Yes, even though you have Black people spouting this bull crap, they are just down with the team and hoping for some crumbs to fall their way. Zaikuna and other institutions like it pander to the immigrant Muslims who come over here with their anti-Blackness as well. These are many of these are many of the sentiments they hold. So this is the core base these institutions are trying to align with. Don't forget, before 9/11, like I said, many immigrant Muslims were Republicans. Many still are low-key. That's why a lot are mad at Trump. Not because he's a racist, but because they like, hey, we voted for you. We thought you was going to hook us up. He goes on in another Facebook post and says, he goes on to another in another Facebook post and he says, Trump ain't my biggest fear. My biggest fear is the future of Islam and my family. I don't see much of what Trump is doing that threatens their faith. The threat to faith is all coming from the lefties. What Trump threatens can easily be defended against by simply strengthening security measures, learning self-defense, and how to shoot. What? This dude is the king of giving mixed messages, man. How ain't your faith or the future of Islam and your family threatened by what Trump is doing? Yet in the same post you say what Trump threatens can easily be defended against by simply strengthening security measures, learning self-defense and how to shoot. What are you defending against if there is no threat? And then he writes this article entitled Beyond Racism for the Zaikuna website. And the intro to the long article is basically on some reverse racism type stuff. In this article, he has the nerve to mention Malcolm X. And he goes also into the history of anti-Blackness and the history of the Arab world, as well as inside of Islam and things of that nature. But he thinks he's slick. See, most of the examples he brings forth are acts of anti-Blackness. Yet he brings up the term ethnocentrism and tries to say that being ethnocentric is basically racist, so that he can later on say, one that, he can later on say the ones with different ethnicities, which were white, systematically oppresses each other, is actually racism. So he was trying to say like two different cultures, but both of them were white. Since they practice ethnocentrism is basically racism. So these two white groups are really practicing racism against each other. So see, black people, it's not just you all that's being oppressed. So, you know what I'm saying? He's trying to use that. It's just some weird stuff. It don't work. And he also tries to use this term to say that blacks are racist to whites by saying, since you're black and you only want to mess with black people, then that's you being racist to whites. No, ethnocentrism isn't racism. And if you read the article, he hints at that. Yet he still tries to say that it does mean that. Ethnocentrism is basically you messing with your own people, socially, economically, marriage, culture, etc. There's nothing wrong with this. This is how most people are. It's not racist to do that. What's racist is when you say, well, I'm better than this other group because of my color, and then you go about oppressing that other group because of that reason. So don't try that. And I'll put the link to his House Muslim Babble article in the blog. And he tries to use these big words and things to try to flip you up and slip you up so you won't catch what he's actually saying. And what's crazy about this man is that he wrote a book called The Negro and Arab Muslim Consciousness, in which he talks about the many different facets of anti-blackness and, amongst Arabs and even inside of Islam. Yet he can't see the systematic white supremacy of today. That's very strange. But let's make something clear to the listeners, because this is what folks like Ali would have you believe. We are not leftists or liberals. We are Muslims. Just because I'm against white supremacy and I'm about black empowerment doesn't mean I'm liberal. We are Muslims and we are told to be moderate. So as a Muslim, I am not leaning to one side or the other too much. So don't be fooled. Too much liberalism brings you into the fold of Satanism or do what thou wilt. And too much conservatism will bring you into the fold of the Khawarij. We are to be in the middle. But back to Hamza Useless, the leader of the pack. Isn't it strange how he's now working with Trump and the gang, and before he was working with Bush, and he's espousing white supremacist talking points? We mentioned earlier how he was saying the same things about police brutality and incarceration, etc., as his other homie Ali was saying. And he never apologized for it. And now he's working with Trump and using excuses for being involved with him, saying things like, well, Musa went and talked to Pharaoh, and even though Allah knew that Pharaoh wouldn't accept his call, he still told him to go. So he's using that to say him signing on to work inside with Trump is the same or similar as Musa going to Pharaoh. And this just isn't true. Just because you dress it up in nice words and big words that no one understands doesn't make what you're saying is right. A great poet once said, these dudes is all politics depositing checks they put in their pocket, and all you get in return is a lot of lip, and y'all buy the script, caught up in the hype. Cause a dude wear a kufi, it don't mean that he bright. Cause you don't understand him, it don't mean that he nice. It just means you don't understand all the bull crap that he writes. And this is what Hamza is doing. He's getting paper from this in some way, lining his pockets, then giving lip and speaking down to blacks, while giving you empty, big-worded jargon on why working with an oppressor is just like what Musa did. No. Musa came, him and his brother, and stood up to Pharaoh and said, accept Islam and let my people go, or there will be consequences. He didn't say, well, hey, let me and my brother work on your panel to discuss human rights and how you're treating these slaves you have here. We not falling for it, Hamza. We see through the matrix. We see through the facade. Allah gives insight to whom he wills to see the real, and you looking real unfamiliar. So what is the next step? The next step is to turn away from this Zaikuna plantation and its professors and continue to call them out whenever we see or hear about some more foul stuff they doing or saying, and call others to turn away from them, period. Because we are now looking at you very suspicious and we don't trust you. You have shown that you side with white supremacy on many occasions, and we're not accepting that. Now, I'm going to tell you what will happen next. What will happen next is that we will be called all kinds of names. We will be called bullies, reverse racists, colonizers of people's thoughts, black extremists, all because we don't want to accept, and all because we stand against anti-black propaganda. But we must, as Allah says, stand for the truth, whether for or against ourselves, and never fear the blame of the blamers. Peace. This has been Muslim and Black in America, MABIA, with your host, Bilal Abdullah. And again, if you like the content, don't forget to drop a donation. The Cash App link is in the bio. And if you don't have anything to give, then you can give something free, like a like, a share, a subscription, whatever. Once again, thanks for listening. Assalamu alaikum and peace.